Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our meeting of the Fresno County Board of Supervisors. If you would all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 1, approve agenda. Madam Chair, members of the board, item 12 is deleted in the regular calendar for your 2 p.m. It's deleted from the agenda. We'll be back at a later date.
Item number 12 is deleted from the afternoon. Okay. Are there any other items any board members have comment on the agenda set for this morning and this afternoon? I don't see any changes to our agenda, then a motion for approval would be appropriate. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the next item is the morning consent.
Item number 2, morning consent agenda, item number 17 through 45, including your addendum item D under the sheriff.
Okay, for morning consent, these are items are considered routine in nature and are usually approved by a single motion, single vote. Prior to action by the board, the public may wish to remove any item for separate vote, separate discussion, or a member of the board may remove any item for separate vote, separate discussion. Any items on the consent calendar that members of the board would like to have removed?
I'd like to pull 20, please.
Okay, thank you. I was going to pull this very same one. Any other items on the consent calendar? Is there any item on the consent calendar a member of the public would like to have pulled for separate vote, separate discussion? Seeing none.
She's raising her hand.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Yes, which item would you like to have pulled for separate vote?
We didn't get the numbers that were pulled.
Number 20.
Number 20, and it's out of agenda items 17 through 45. These are all considered routine. They're on consent unless pulled.
Madam Chair, I know there's someone here for 43. Now would be the time to pull that if they're interested in doing that.
Is there anybody that wanted to wish to have item number 43 pulled? Okay, and you're here to discuss that. What I would suggest is our other item 20, we hold back to the afternoon because our afternoon is a little lighter in terms of calendar compared to this morning, so we can hold item 20 or 43 immediately and then hold 20 for the afternoon. Are there any other items? Then a motion for the remainder would be appropriate.
Second.
All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Do we have staff for 43? I don't.
Yeah, Donna Taylor.
Well then, at this point, let's have a short presentation by Mrs. Taylor. And then I think we have public comment or question.
Number 43.
Item 43, under the administrative office, approve and authorize chairman to execute, item 43, under the administrative office, adopt resolution to accept a donation from the Housing
Okay,
Authority
our staff will come up and then I'll open it up for public comment.
of City and County of Fresno to support an agreement with Housing and Supportive Services of Fresno for the provision of supportive services for seriously mentally ill consumers, and authorize the chairman to execute a retroactive agreement with Housing and Supportive Services of Fresno for the provision of supportive services to adult mental health consumers, effective May 1st, 2010 through December 31st, 2010.
This is Donna Taylor, Department of Behavioral Health. This agenda item is for us to accept the grant from the Housing Authority. This is for Cedar Heights, which is a apartment complex that does mental health supportive housing. At this point, we have, I believe it was about 3 months ago, we came before the board and asked for an extension to their current agreement. In that 3-month time, we worked with Dennis Regan from Cedar Heights, the Mental Health Board, and the Housing Authority, and we were able to come to this agreement where we would continue to pay for supportive services at the level in which we would pay if they went into a board and care with supportive mental health component. We pay them a supplemental rate. So we based it on the number of clients that were at the facility that required that level of support, which there were 15 So we agreed to pay the supplemental rate plus to give him $25,000, supplement it with the $25,000 that the Housing Authority would give us.
Any questions of Mrs. Taylor?
That's through the end of this year, and then to eliminate the contract, correct?
That's correct.
And that allows a transition time. Let me open it up for public comment, because that's,
Just one more comment. During this time, what we suggested to Dennis is to look for alternative grant funding, to give him that opportunity, and also we would work on continuing if clients wanted to move, and we would not refer any further clients to that facility.
thank you. It's open for public comment. If you would just introduce yourself, please.
Yes, Madam Chairman. I'm Dennis Torigian with Housing and Supportive Services of Fresno and board members. What I'm concerned about are the 23 additional clients or folks, people entrusted to us for their care by the Department of Behavioral Health, in addition to the 15 that is provided for in the funding in your board briefing report. These folks are serious and chronically mentally ill. They're all disabled. And in our experience, and we've been doing this now for 12 years, this specific project, and I myself have been working with folks with mental disabilities for well over 20 years. In my opinion, we have found when you pull these kinds of supportive services from folks like this, they become frequent users of public services and frequently deteriorate into behaviors that are dangerous to themselves or others. It's a very serious issue. We're not going to be able to provide the kind of supportive services that we have been. Our budget has been cut by 2/3. We're remaining 1/3 to care for the 15 people that in fact were defined in your board briefing report. But we do have an additional 23 folks referred to us by the Department of Behavioral Health living at this facility, which incidentally is adjacent to a public high school. I would beg your consideration to see if there isn't some way, and I recognize these are very, very, very difficult times, but some way to deal with this situation with some further funding to provide additional support to these folks to ensure their safety and care and to keep them off the streets and out of difficulties is a very serious concern on our part. With that, I would answer any questions.
Any questions from board members? Thank you for your comments. Any further public comment on this agenda item? Just a brief response. We do have another item that is on our consent that has not been pulled, but in regards to some of our services for hospitalization of mental health consumers. And I had a conversation with Mrs. Taylor yesterday asking further questions about some of those costs. So I know there's a lot of items in mental health that are being reviewed for efficiency and whether we're going down the right pathways. And I do believe those things will be coming back to this board to take some further review on how we best, within our limited dollars, are able to provide services to the mentally ill that need assistance.
Well, I also want to say I talked to Donna yesterday, and I know that she realizes this is a safe facility, and I've talked to everybody now, but you know what? These are tough times for us, and unfortunately, I respect the decision of the department. They know, I have received a lot of emails from people talking about the facility and how they have done such good work, and I think that's great. I commend them, but times are changing around here, and we cannot afford. I would just ask that the department, as the year goes on, as we get, this is a little bit of a transition time, but if there's any possibility as you get further down and have money that can be put toward not specifically this facility, but facilities like this that are safe, that do a great job for our consumers, that I know you will. I know you will look for every opportunity to keep places like this open. So I will move to approve the agenda item.
And I would just comment that, I'll second the motion. I would just comment that this did come before the Mental Health Board, and there was an in-depth explanation of what the department was doing. It's not something that anybody wants to do, and I think Mr. Terrigan is right that these folks who have a higher level of care will probably, their condition will get worse when their level of care is decreased. And they will then be in the jail, they'll be at the hospital, and it will, in the long run, cost more. But unfortunately, this is what the state of California is doing to the counties with these services. And so, really, the department is right, and Mr. Terrigan is right, but the money is being cut. And so we do have to make cuts. And I think Donna's done a good job trying to figure out, okay, what's the best way to really spread the money and provide the best services that we can with what we have. So it's unfortunate.
Any additional comment? All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us this morning.
We now move to item number 3 under the Board of Supervisors, presentation of retirement plaque to Karen Boschkob, 37 years, library.
Could I ask you to take Howard first? My husband's trying to park, so. Well, here he is.
there he
Never
is.
mind, he's here. Oh,
We
in
want
the nick
him
of
to
time.
be here with
He
you.
just walked in.
Well, Karen, it is with great pleasure. Well, I'm going to let John have his say. 37 years, my gosh.
Karen began her career her journey, should I say, with the library service with Fresno County in the early 1970s. She began her career as a librarian and quickly excelled and took on greater responsibilities and leadership roles within the library community, Central Valley system, and statewide. She was appointed the county librarian by your board in 2006. Karen, along with John Kallenberg, led the library through severe budget and service cuts of the 1980s and 1990s, and through rapid expansion after the passage of Measure B. In November, and into recent times, should I say, we've also had a turn down of the economy, which Karen stepped up to the plate and really continued to maintain the highest level of service that the citizens can expect from the library system. And with that, I take my hat off to you, Karen. You did an excellent job. I think the community of Fresno County extends their appreciation for the many years of service and the leadership you provide. And I'm happy to hear that you will continue to provide this leadership and some involvement as we go forward in the library system. Congratulations on your retirement, and you will be missed.
Thank you, John. Thank you. I have some remarks to share. I feel very lucky to have had such a great career at this library. I had no idea that I would stay as long as I did. I remember
Karen,
my
can
mother.
we invite your husband up and
Sure.
have him
And my-
join you?
and
Your
my daughter is
family?
here too. Yeah.
I think it's really important we
Yeah.
see the whole family, because
Thank
it's
you.
a support system that allows you the freedom to be here on a daily basis to do the good work
Yes,
you've done.
this is my support system. So I had no idea I would stay as long as I did. My mother was a civil servant, and so was my father, and I couldn't believe that anybody would work as long as I did. Anyhow, I had a great professor at Cal, and she really instilled in me a passion for library service because it was a service to the community. And I really worked all my career with that goal in mind. I've been fortunate to work on the bookmobile. I was in Reedley for 4 years and supervised community libraries throughout our county. I served as associate county librarian for a long time, and then finally as county librarian. And I want to thank you, board members, and the staff, and John, and all your predecessors, John, for the confidence that you've given me to lead the library. As you know, the library celebrated its 100-year centennial this past March, and that event really helped remind me that the strength of our library is rooted in our leaders, in our staff, but most of all, that strength comes from the community that it serves. In the nearly 4 decades that I've served, I've seen cycles of prosperity and poverty, and as John says, those poverty years were terrible. And I've seen a lot of things change, and I've seen some things that haven't changed at all. And the biggest and the most important change was surely the passage of Measure B, which passed in 1998 and again in 2004 with wonderful support from the community. So it's been a phenomenal 10 years, almost 12 years, and it's really been made possible by the community and by the teamwork of a great staff. So our hope is that we carry all that wonderful energy forward for the next 100 years. We're a very long-lived county department. There are a number of library staff here today, and I want them to stand up, please. This is another part of the great support system, and I want to thank them. And there's some retired people here, too. Come on, Alita, stand up. So their hard work, their creativity, their dedication to the community, and their friendship made the library rewarding, a really fun place and a pleasant place to work. There are a number of us who all had our babies at the same time, and, here's my baby. So I've been also awed and humbled by the dedication of an incredible number of citizens who have volunteered for the library. And these people have been members of the Friends of the Library, the Umbrella Group, the Branch Friends of the Library, the new Central Library Planning Committee, the Citizens Review Panel, and they've helped on 3 separate sales tax measures. They're an inspiration to me, and they taught me the many reasons to be a volunteer. And if it weren't for that reminding me of the importance of volunteerism, every day in our library we have members of the Genealogy Society who are helping out. One role that I didn't expect but I really relished is the opportunity to learn something entirely new and to meet a whole new group of community members, and that's been my role as secretary to the Fresno County Historic Landmarks and Records Commission. The commission has taught me a great deal about county history and about life in the past in our county, and they've been friends to each other, and they've been friends to me in the present. I also owe a great big thank you to my husband and my daughter, who've shared me with the library all these years. When my daughter was young, she tolerated all my out-of-town travels, and she made up a new word for a place that I visited frequently. Instead of calling it Sacramento, she called it Sacro-meeting, which I think is very apt. We all know Sacro-meeting only too well. I'm very proud of her. She's just finished her first year in college in Seattle. She's a vocal jazz major. Yeah. And my husband retired a number of years ago, and he's been patiently spending many evenings and weekends alone waiting for me. So they've been a wonderful support system for me. A number of people have asked me what I'm going to do in my retirement. And first of all, I'm enjoying time with my family. We've been to Seattle a couple times, and I have an elderly aunt in San Diego, and I've been helping take care of her. My husband and I enjoy heritage and cultural travel, and we've done some things with the Archaeology Society and the Audubon Society. We share a deep love, our whole family does, for the Sierra Nevada, for camping, for nature, and for the truly spectacular place that our county is. I'm looking forward to having times to pursue my hobbies. I might actually be able to call them hobbies. That certainly hasn't been the case for a long time, and I'm keeping my hand in the profession by continuing to serve in a statewide program, and I'm also hoping to set up a class with the American Library Association. I have 2 other major volunteer responsibilities. For many years, I've been a volunteer for the Fresno County Federal Credit Union Board, and I've done that almost as long as I've worked in the library. It's been a wonderful opportunity for me to learn a great deal more. And I'm also a member of the Fresno Coalition for Arts, Science, and History, and this year I'm serving as the chair. And finally, I've been promised to serve, if asked, on the renewal of the sales tax measure for the library that will take place in 2012. And I think John and I are probably, where's John Callenberg? He and I are probably going to be teammates on that again, as we have been for such a long time in our career. John has been just a wonderful mentor to me, and I learned a great deal from him. So I have a long list of what I want to do. Of course, I'll be lucky if I get half of it done. That's how it goes. I really don't like the components of the word retire. It makes it sound as though I'm tired or that I'm a retiring person, and neither one of those things are true. So rather, I'm really looking forward to the next chapter in the book of my life, which is refocusing and repurposing as a citizen of this wonderful county. So thank you very much.
Karen, we have a plaque, and it seems like such a small token for all the good work that you've done for Fresno County. We haven't had that many librarians over time. People rise through the ranks and stay in that position. I had the pleasure of working with Mr. Kallenberg when I got on this board, and actually the year I first ran for supervisor was the year of the first Measure B. So I didn't go through those austere times with the library. Starting with that year, Mr. Kallenberg didn't stay real long. He handed over the reins to you, so you have built, designed, worked with communities, gotten a whole bunch of new libraries up and running that are such a great service to our community. You took us through the sesquicentennial in 2006. This is great. It's good she likes history. Because we've had several points in time. It's been a magical time that you've been leading this library. We've had the sesquicentennial for Fresno County with a great celebration community-wide, many partners, and we're having the 100th anniversary celebration of the Fresno County Library System. And I can only think of one other time when libraries probably were so far in the forefront, and that was when the building of all the Carnegie libraries happened that really started expanding books into communities in a way that had never been done before, unless you want to go back to when Benjamin Franklin initiated the first library, when books were hard to come by, people had to buy them, they saved them very closely, and then they started learning to share them, which is what the library does. So thank you so much for all of your good work, for your leadership, and I feel very confident with the co-chairing of the next Measure B between you and Mr. Kallenberg. We're going to do just fine. Any other comments?
I would just like to say that, the libraries are truly a bright spot in this county, and it's really because of the library staff. The library staff are so great that the voters have confidence in the library and then voted for Measure B. And that changed our library system, and it's really, you deserve a lot of credit for that, Karen, and also John. Where's John? John somewhere. He keeps moving
He's
around.
back
Oh,
there
there he is.
taking pictures.
For the leadership under you too, really, I think gave the confidence to the public to support Measure B, and I hear just nothing but, compliments from constituents about the library system. So I want to thank you for your years of service. I think you've been a great example of a department head in this county.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Say thank you for what you've done since I've been on the board. I'm a little bit concerned, though, because I got elected to the board, and the next year John Kallenberg retired, and now Karen's gone. It's something I did. I'm hopefully.
Our time had just come.
But you've worked with us. We started on the Mendota Library, and it's completed. And boy, what a boon to that community. And then we've worked on the one-stop shop with the library out by Edison High School, and I've been out there a couple of times since it's going. Boy, there's kids all over
Very
the place
well
getting
used,
books. I mean,
yes.
it's a fantastic program for West Fresno that had never been there before. I mean, yeah, they had a library, but it was kind of a hole in the wall. This is something that's really happening. You're to be commended, and the library system took a big hit by putting that there, because I know how much you gave dollar-wise to help us do that, and that was so important. And now you've already initiated the start of the Tranquility Library that'll happen later this summer. And we're going to be working with West Hills College on their new campus out there, and hopefully we'll include a county library combination, West Hills College County Library in that. A lot is happening, and because of you and Mr. Kallenberg, we have a lot to be thankful for in Fresno County. You've led the way, you've set the path, you've given us a goal, and we just really appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
I just want to echo what Supervisor Larson said. You have not treated the rural areas as stepchildren to Fresno.
They're not.
They're not. And you have not. And I'm just so proud of what you have accomplished in our Foothill Mountain area in particular, but also in the other rural areas on the western side and southern part of our county. And I just want to thank you for that.
Okay, well, you have some wonderful staff on the east side. Yes.
And I want to thank you too, Karen. I've known you a long time.
Yes,
You
we have.
Great staff that work with you, so and we can't get anything that we do done without great staff, so congratulations. And I know, and I think you said it best, you're just going into another chapter of your life, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
It's not retired, it's restart.
Yes, yeah, I know. It's something that starts with R-E, huh?
Watch out if you work as hard as he did in
I
his
know.
restart.
Yeah.
If you would come up and accept our congratulations to you and all the staff of the library that do a great job.
You want to invite the staff up too?
How about our library staff? You want to come up and join, please?
Come on, library staff, here they come.
It's good to see you. I've heard a lot about you. Your horses and all that stuff.
We'll be helping you with Measure B. And don't run away, we're going to take a big picture of you. Thank you so much for letting us your mom for so long. Thanks.
Hello. You look too young to be retired. Are you retired? You're the retired one.
Thank you so much for lending us care.
You look great.
Thank you so much.
Oh, okay. Well, it's nice that you came today. Nice to have you here.
Boss, you're doing all right.
Good to see you. It's great to have you here.
Down with a
For being here to speak. We're gonna, I guess, do a group photo here, huh?
Thank you so much.
You've retired.
Thank you so much. We need to get a picture over here. Yeah, library.
Library staff on both sides. Family support. Come on, John. No, sorry.
Come on, John.
He probably can work it.
Might have to squeeze a little bit.
There we go.
Oh, wait, yeah.
Oh, nice picture. One, two, one more.
All right.
We now move to item number 4 under Supervisor Anderson. Designate Howard Watkins as current photo laureate of Fresno County.
That's a great idea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, it's an honor to bring this item forward to honor our friend Howard Watkins. His wife, Chris, is here with him. And I guess, I'm just thinking after 40 years of taking over 200,000 photos, mostly in Fresno County, this is the least that we can do to honor Howard for his service. And Howard is part of the county family, worked 21 years in the county council's office, so we've all met, talked with Howard about legal issues, but mostly we've seen Howard behind the camera, as he was this morning, and directing everybody else who had a camera. So, Howard, we're honored. I'm honored to bring this forward, and I'd like to make a motion to approve the designation.
Second.
We have a motion, second.
All those in favor state aye.
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 Any opposed? Of course not.
Of course not. Unanimous vote.
You didn't talk about that.
We're not going to let Chris, no, Chris has been, I know, very supportive. She's been at a lot of events. So, Howard, would you want to make some comments? And I just want to point out, Howard, of course, in the Howard Watkins fashion, would bring some photographs with him, and they're on the wall on both sides of the boardroom, of different photos, I think mostly of the county board of supervisors.
These are county-related. There's 75 photo boards I put together, but there's a limit to the push pins and the movement of them all. I'm very honored by this recognition. I want to thank you all very much. It means a lot to me. I was inspired by Pop Laval, and I'm honored when people think of me as the modern-day Pop Laval. I'm also in awe of the work he did. I've done over 200,000 photos, which is twice as many as he ever took in half the time. But I didn't lug a 50-pound camera, glass plates, have to set the lighting. He didn't have Costco to go to do 400 prints in an hour as opposed to doing them all by hand. So his work is truly amazing. My project started off as a hobby, and as my wife pointed out, it became an obsession, and it really did. To do 200,000 photographs, I think I'm up to 210. I lose track. It's an approximate number. I'm in the process of getting the 120,000 negatives when I did film scanned, and the goal of the project is to have my photos indexed, and I've partnered with the Madden Library at Fresno State and the Fresno Regional Foundation, because the project's about $150,000 in third-party expenses. Fortunately, thanks to people in the community, I've raised over $100,000, And so we're well underway. I hope to have the scanning done by mid-June, and as you all have received the invitation, June 13th, we're having a hosted reception at the Madden Library. 37 years and my 63rd birthday, and I do want to call up my wife, Chris. She's been a real trooper. It's my wife, Christine Watkins. I'm at meetings, I'm at events, I'm home with her, but I'm in my office working on the computer, cropping the photos, sending them out, making CDs. So she doesn't get to see them as much as I would like. And after the reception, we're going to take a 3-week vacation. We haven't done that for a while.
Road trip.
Yes. One of the things I wanted.
taking pictures too, won't you?
Camera, yes, of course.
And it's been an honor. One of the things that I've realized is a little different. Most photographers do not set up pictures. You know, you can see what I did this morning. I make a point, and it's a tight line between being polite and being pushy on it. But there's a lot of photos that now exist that would not have. My favorite one is, the team picture at Fresno State, the baseball team. I asked Paul Lofer, can we get a team picture? Fresno State was not planning on having a team picture when they celebrated their national championship at Biden Field. And so he pulled it together, and he said there was a photographer who wants a group picture, so everybody come on up. And that's how that picture got taken. This one, I didn't do as much to set up. I used a tall step ladder. It's an aerial of downtown Fresno, and I believe it's so far the only one
Really tall
like it
step
because it includes the new federal building. It's all the way from Amtrak over to the Warners and the Grand. And Judy, I'd like to give this, it's a 20 by 30 print. I just got it back last night.
Where did you take that from?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
That's beautiful.
And I do like to think it's a tall step ladder, but it's actually courtesy of American Airlines when we went to LA.
That's a real tall step ladder.
Yes. But Jay, if I may, I'd like to give this to you for the county, and the
Thank
county has any
you.
use for it. If more copies are needed, or usually I do a 12 by 18 version, John can get in hold of me and we can take care of that.
That'd
And
be
that
very-
photo, Howard, is the one that was featured in the Rotary
That's lovely.
insert
Thank you.
in the Fresno Bee recently.
Yes, the
I
Rotary
love
Club,
that.
Rotary Club has used that for their brochure, and it's nice to see people using the photos. I mean, not all 210,000 are going to end up online and indexed, and I just hope I get the indexing done before carpal tunnel and Alzheimer's sets in. Anyway,
And after the road trip.
yes, yes. Thank you very much.
I just want to say one thing. I think Howard is the only guy in this county that when you see him coming, you start smiling. Because you know he's got his camera, and you're going to be smiling eventually. So thank you for everything that you do.
Well, Howard's a gentleman, but he's also pushy. Because I've been there and just getting that line right there, and get over here. And but he does a great job, and it's a great asset to Fresno County. Thank you, Howard.
Thank you.
And Howard, we want to thank you for all of the copies of photos that you've given us each personally. I mean, we've
yeah.
all received the little envelopes from Howard. Sometimes I see you, you'll say, can you give this to Phil, and this to Debbie, and one to Judy, one to Henry. And so I pass them out. I'm sure other supervisors have done the same. So we appreciate that because we know you do that at your own expense, and it's very kind of you to provide those photos for us.
My pleasure. And I also want to point out, my photography is totally nonpartisan. If I can get to an event, I'll take the picture. This is part for the community. It's not just for my collection per se.
Thank you, and I wanted to put a plug in because you helped me understand something also. You take pictures at all events of importance for this entire county, and I was honored last year by my alma mater, and one of the ways to help Howard and his efforts is invite him to your table. He loves to go to these events. He pays out of his own pocket and goes to multiple community events that are fundraisers for different nonprofits and organizations. And it really was delightful having you join our table. And it helps put him at the event so more pictures get taken. And that's helps the whole system. So I also want to just put a plug in for the celebration also on the 13th of June, Sunday from 3 to 5. And that's going to be at the Madden Library. This collection is so very important to all of us, and to have it archived and available to the public is just such a gift from your heart, and we want to say thank you, and it's really a great pleasure to make this designation as our official photographer. I'm really pleased that Supervisor Anderson brought this forward because I think it is so well earned. And Chris for standing by him and kind of being patient as the multiple photographs would go rolling by. None of us do this alone, and having a spouse that totally supports what you do is so very important. So that being said, I'll invite you up to get the congratulations from all of the board members.
And a picture.
Yeah, he's already got it lined up. Who's going to take the picture? It's really funny. Howard, so proud of you. Here's your copy of the proclamation.
Special to you. Finished your best day in the hospital to work.
Now we're going to do a photo.
Good to have you with us.
Okay.
Thank you for everything.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Chris.
You probably go to more events than we do. Very much.
Chris, good to see you.
Okay. Another picture.
Come on over. Kevin, come on back. This is the last step.
No pressure, Kathy.
At all.
Thank you. It's also an honor to have
Colleagues,
Chris is an educator, retired after 35 years with Fresno Unified, now supervises student teachers at Fresno State, and now we have to go take care of her side of the ledger.
you are a very committed community partnership for this, for all of us. And we do so well when we have volunteers in our community that help move us all along in positive directions. Thank you again. Just for the board, I had a request. We've already covered our morning consent calendar agenda item, and we had an individual that got here and wasn't used to being in our boardroom and had requested if there was any way to have item 32 considered from the consent calendar so that a comment could be made.
So we can reopen it for comment?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
So let's reopen 32 so we allow a citizen to express their concerns or
And-
comments.
Under the consent, under County Administrative Office, confirm County Administrative Officer's decision to invoke Personnel Rule 12, Section 12060, mandatory furlough in fiscal year 2010-11 for representations units 2, 12, and 31.
And I'm going to open it up for public comment. This is on item number 32. I understood somebody wanted to address the board.
Hello, thank you.
If you would just introduce yourselves for us, please.
My name is Ethan Harris. I'm an internal worksite organizer with SEIU 521. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm here to speak on behalf of the membership of bargaining units 2, 12, and 31 regarding mandatory furloughs to be imposed upon them. I hope the county employees clearly hear that SEIU 521 has repeatedly asked the CAO's office to provide the budget for fiscal year 2010 and 2011 so that we can have open and honest dialogue in regards to this fiscal matter. It makes no sense to ask the employees to take a pay cut when raises are given to the CAO and staff in his department. As you know, furloughs for bargaining unit 2, correctional officers and juvenile correctional officers cost the county more money from the general fund for overtime than they save. The Department of Child Support Services also loses revenue and dollars which in turn support the community and working families of Fresno County. We see no savings or rational thinking behind these furloughs. Bargaining Unit 12 not only affects the services provided to the community, but hits the lowest paid employees in the county. The leadership of Bargaining Unit 12 has asked me to inform the board that they are scheduling a meeting with labor relations pertaining to furloughs, and that the grand jury report pertaining to retirement funds is full of discrepancies. If the board plans to establish committees to deal with retirement funds, a labor representative needs to be on each committee. Once again, we're asking for a copy of the budget to discuss ways to assist you, the Board of Supervisors, with budget problems. As of right now, the Board of Supervisors is sending the mixed message that while there's not enough money to keep county employees working, there is enough money to pay for raises for the Chief Administrative Officer and his staff, and to purchase a building for $4 million. We cannot expect county employees to accept pay cuts without proof of actual savings in the budget as a whole. Thank you.
If you get that budget, I'd like to see it because the board hasn't yet received a copy of the 2010-11 budget. And I'm sure as that gets printed, we would be happy to have you have a copy, but I don't even have a copy yet as a member of this board because it hasn't yet been published. So we will make sure you get that information. And my understanding, and please anybody correct me, and I know this is a really uncomfortable process, and it's uncomfortable for me, and we're going to be discussing some other proposed layoff notices I'm very uncomfortable with. But because of our labor agreements, layoff notices, I think, have a 30-day noticing requirement, which is why they go out before the budget does, based on our contracts with our union groups. So I don't know how to make that process any better if it has to go out before the budget gets approved. But that will all happen in the budget discussion by this board, and we will take that very seriously to try and minimize impacts to our employees. But, you know, it is a new day in terms of available revenues for us, so I really appreciate you bringing those issues forward. But I have to tell you, I don't have a copy of the budget either yet.
Typically, we provide the budget to labor when we make it available to the public. That's been our standard. That is our practice. If I start giving budget drafts of budget, the budget, I have to figure out where I stop the line. I have the chambers asking for it. I have everyone asking for it. And if I leave someone out, they'll file a complaint saying I didn't get one. So our practice has been, and my recommendation would be to continue the practice. Once the budget is completed, your board receives it first, and then the public gets it. And the process, the whole idea of budget hearings is for groups such as these to come during budget hearings and offer up suggestions and modifications to the budget, which is a public forum at that point, to have an open dialogue. Furthermore, I do have an overhead I'd like to present to the board. If I may address his issue on any adjustments to my staff, as I think it's warranted. The adjustments that we gave to my staff were promotions that were earned. You have, as you will see in this overhead, a chart showing increases to all bargaining units over the same period as management has had. And you will see that management, as he's referring to, since 2005 to present, has only received an 8.99, but when you deal with the bargaining unit he is referring to, SEIU, they receive a 1, which is Unit 2, 30%, 30.75% increase. You look at Unit, that is from 2005 to 2010, current year. So as you go down the list, you can see the disparity that is being misrepresented here as far as adjustments that have been presented. If you want to talk about Unit 2, they received over the same period of time a 30.75% increase, where management has received, should I say senior management received an 8.99, management, mid-management received a 12.75, unrepresented received 12.75. If you want to refer to Unit 12 received 25.75% increase over the same amount of period, and when you go to Unit 31 received a 25.75% increase. So, you know, I've heard this complaint over and over, but it's not really a true representation of what has been occurring. And I believe it's time that we at least float it out for the general public to see that, you know, I can't have two standards. If you're unrepresented and you earned a promotion, you should receive the promotion if funding is in the department. plain and simple. There should not be two standards, one for unrepresented and one for represented.
Can we get a copy of that, John, so that
Sure.
we can, because we can't really see that.
If I may respond, I believe that the raises to the SEIU workers was approved by the board, and that your raises were behind closed doors.
No.
And the workers of SEIU and workers of the county have an interest in seeing the budget, and SEIU is very well qualified to help assist the Board of Supervisors in this matter, as opposed to members of the general public. So we do ask for that budget as soon as possible.
And I will give you assurances you will receive the budget as soon as it is published. And we want the public to engage in that discussion. Our budget hearings are scheduled for the 13th of June, I believe, that Monday through Friday. So I hope you'll be able to
Thank
join
you.
us.
Hi, my name is Bo Tao. I'm a juvenile correctional officer. I work at the JJC.
Pull the mic down before you.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
hard to hear.
This is my first time, so I'm very nervous. I'm only here to express my concerns, and this is in regards to furloughs and how it affects me, myself, and my peers at the JJC. We feel, or I feel, and those that support me or they know we go through the same thing. The furloughs, maybe they might work for other departments in the county. We don't see it as working much for us at the JJC because you're going to replace, one thing is you're going to replace the officers, the regular officers with per diems. And they might be part-time per diems, but we're hiring so many of them that they're so new, they're coming into the facility to work and then to go through training and everything, but you're going to replace them into the facility, and it's going to cause a safety and security issue because because they're so brand new. To react to the quick response, to react in an emergency, in a code red, for example, for them to react, for them to respond, it's harder. It takes more time for them to respond because you're talking about taking out permanent staff that has been there for 2 or 3 years, who's known the facility, they know the kids. Sometimes just by seeing our face and knowing us, the kids will calm down. And just having that rapport. And when you replace it with per diems to save money and to go into, impose furloughs on us and just to save money, I feel that, are you going to put the safety of the officers at risk? You know, it may be where one pod where it might be run by me. I'm a JCO2. I'm not a senior. You should have a senior in there, but I'm just a JCO2. I have the experience and I will run the pod. But if you put me there with maybe 2 new hired in per diems, which doesn't happen all the time, but when it comes down to the days where we have vacations or we have furloughs and stuff like that, it does happen. And you will have maybe 2 new hires that they've been there maybe 6 months and another 2-3 months. And when it comes down to like the kids fighting or anything like that, and you're just trying to get the response, just calling over the radio for help or anything like that, some of us will try to do our best and everything, but the quick reaction time is just not there. And so I want you guys to take into consideration, these kids that we are holding right now, they are not there for petty crimes anymore. We try not to hold the small crimes. If you're committing burglaries or whatsoever, we're releasing them for SHD. You're going back home. And I know I talked to one of the booking staff, and he's explained to me that lately, especially with all the home invasions that's been coming up, that we've been having to release them because we have to hold the higher offenses, the assault and batteries and murder or attempted murders, things like that. And so I just want you guys to consider the fact that when we put 40-hour furloughs into our facility and we have our officers, the permanent officers who are well-trained and they know what they're doing, you have them go out on furloughs and then you replace them so much with per diems, it causes a safety risk for us. I know that on the days where if I'm going in and I look on the schedule and I see there are so many extra help, I know that on that day, I have to take extra precautionary. I work in an area where I open doors and I monitor the halls, the movements of the facility and everything. And I know I have to be ready for those, and I have to be ready to pop the doors open in case something does happen. I have to monitor the security of it. And it's very important to me to know my job and know how to let everyone go and respond to the place. Now, the other thing is, what I've seen is that when I'm opening doors, sometimes some officers are asking, which way do I go? Because they're new. So, and when I see officers like that and they're placed onto like a security task and they're on security, they're the response. They're the response in case something happens. And if they're responding and they don't know where they're going, we normally will have, it'll cause a safety issue for the officers that are involved in the incident.
Thank you. That's the 5-minute limit. I'm going to have to ask you to conclude.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, again, Miriam Alvarez, SCIU Local 521. I want to thank you, Chair, for letting us open this up again for discussion. We'll make sure we have it right the next time. Also, I am pleased to know that we will have the book open to us as soon as possible. That's the only way our membership, our employees, County of Fresno, can make an informative decision. So we encourage that as quickly as possible. Thank you.
I really do believe the layoff notices are related to a 30-day notice requirement, so it doesn't actually get fully approved by the board until the budget is fully approved.
All right, thank you.
Good morning, Anna Casey, Correctional Officer. I just want to remind the board today that with furloughs, I want to remind the board that we do work, the correctional officers as well as the juvenile correctional officers do work in a 24-hour facility, and we are fixed post. It's not like we can shut down the booking area or the records processing area and send everybody home for that day and just not get paid. We have to have replacement for our posts, whether it be in the security stations, the floors, the housing units. Every position in the jail or the JJC is a fixed post. So we have to be backfilled by another officer. I want to remind the board that we are at a level in the jail right now where we are holding the worst of the violent inmates. And we are mass releasing inmates over and over. Just yesterday, we released what I call our poster child, the one that gets, I don't know if I can mention his name or not, so I won't. I think we all know who we're talking about. His picture keeps coming out in the Fresno Bee. We released him again. It was probably for the 6th or 7th time. And I personally booked that person in, and he told me he wanted to know what time he was going to be leaving, and if he was going to be there a long period of time, he wanted his lunch, and he did not want to be sleeping on the concrete floor for more than 8 hours. And he was released yesterday. So I just want to remind the board that those are the types of people we are dealing with now. They are openly blatant, they are bolden, they are, for lack of a better term, very cocky with us now. They know they're not going to stay, and I just wanted to come up and remind the board that those issues we're still dealing with, and on top of that, we know that we are going to be faced with most likely more cuts for correctional officers, layoffs, and so we are probably going to have to pick up that overtime for the officers that are gone. As far as part-time officers, I would like to just, right at the back of what the officer from JJC said, if you bring in part-time employees, they have to be trained. That is a cost. That costs money. They don't know the system as well, and to immediately bring in part-time staff to work the jails with the level of inmates that we currently have is probably not a good thing. So I just wanted to remind the board today that, to please think seriously about furloughing the correctional officers and the JJC officers for the fact that we are 24-hour facility and we are fixed posts and we still have to be replaced. So, we don't really see that much of a cost savings there for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments on?
Hi, good morning, Eric Schmidt, President, Fresno Deputy Sheriff's Association. I wanted to come up, we kind of started the whole furlough talks last year. We signed off for 2 fiscal years knowing that the county was going to go into financial hurt for the next 2 fiscal years. The way the county was gracious enough to set up the furlough is it's taken out per pay period, and then in lieu of your vacation time, you're able to take that 40-hour block off so you don't burn your time, you use the furlough time. I hear 24/7 facilities. We run a 24/7 operation at the Sheriff's Department under the deputies that we serve the public 24/7. So it is a little different. We haven't had too many problems with staffing. Occasionally you do run into them, but it's working well for us. So.
Just a question for you. Do you see furloughs as a way of avoiding actual layoffs?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any additional public comment on this item? The board did take action. Was there any further board discussion? Okay, then we'll go to the next item.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to confirm one question with our HR folks. How many meetings did you have with SEIU before bringing this item to us? How many negotiating sessions?
John Pinheiro, Personnel Services. We had one meeting on May 7th. However, we did notice SEIU on January 19th of this year. We've been consistently asking them to come to the table. However, we've been only successful in setting up one meeting. We've continued to ask the question to come to the table in terms of reaching a TOC agreement, but there seems to be no interest in that at this point.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll go to the next item. I'm sorry, we only allow public. When it's closed, it's closed. Everybody gets their opportunity at the podium.
We now move to item number 5. Under Supervisor Anderson, approve designation and placement of the Old Fig Garden District as a historic district on the county's list of historic places, and authorize the chairman to execute the certificate for a historic district.
Yes, Madam Chair, this is the second time that this item is coming back to the board. We introduced it last time, and I know we have a number of people here who want to speak. We also have Randy McFarland here from the Historic Commission, and he's going to explain the process that this has gone through, because he was not able to be here last time.
Are you here for public comment?
No, I'm not.
You're here for
I'm here to
leadership on
represent
this.
the
Okay.
group, the condominium group. And
If you would just start by introducing yourself.
I'm Dan Hedman, I'm president of the condominium group. There are 8 of us, and of 8 parcels located on 1541 East Fairmont. Okay. If I understood that right, have it been presented before?
Well, typically what we do is we have the staff of the county to give the first presentation, and then different groups that have a different perspective on it to share their thoughts. But I think we need the agenda item probably worked through first.
I'll do it for.
Okay.
I think this is, if I'm not mistaken, this is a group that is not included, that wants to be included.
We have
Okay.
I'm Linda Dupsik. I live at Fig Garden Place, probably the longest, and they're PUDs, and Jan's the president.
Okay.
And, excuse me with the ands, and a teacher at the same time. Isn't that sad? Okay,
If we
anyway,
might just
I'm
stop so we
here.
get our staff report on the record first, I think that's really where we should be. Supervisor Anderson, was that your
Yeah.
intent?
If you wouldn't mind just waiting until we make the presentation, and then we would appreciate your
We
comments.
will certainly open it up and have everybody's comments.
Unless
We have to leave.
Oh, we have to leave, okay. Well, then,
And you did get a fax from Gail Storm.
I didn't get one.
Yeah, I have not received any facts on this agenda item. If we could maybe have the
We're
clerk
more
just check.
concerned, excuse me, we're more concerned with the discrepancy. We get one map that says we're in and one map that says we're out.
Right, this is the second hearing, and we do have a second map. We changed the boundaries based on the comments that
Well-
were made at the board meeting before.
obviously, we prefer, since we're Fig Garden Place and we live in Fig Garden, we prefer to stay in Fig Garden. And in order to do that, I understand we have to file historic as the old Fig Garden. We're all in old Fig Garden.
Is this your area where it's hash marked on this? Can we maybe see it on the map?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't see what she's talking
What
about.
area are you talking about?
What area are you talking about? Where do you live exactly?
1541 East Fairmont.
And where is that?
That is,
Can you point it out, Mike, on the computer? It's too big. Oh, it's up in the corner. See the corner in the
it's in the
top
very
right hand?
tippy top.
The little slash mark up in the very right hand. It's kind of hard to see it on there. It's white. There's a little dot of white.
In the northeast corner?
And you
Yes,
live
right
in a
there.
historic
See it right there?
building in that area?
Okay.
You live in a
We're
historic,
filing for that.
but you live in a historic building.
Point it?
When was the building built where you live?
I believe it was in 72,
Okay,
I'm not
that's what I thought it
positive. I'm an
So
original
she's pointing it
owner.
out right now with the little pointer and the red dot. That's the correct location?
Yeah, I can point it on this one, too.
I believe so,
Yeah, that's it.
yeah.
And so you're here because you want to be included in the,
Could I just
in the
clarify this a little bit? I'm the acting secretary for the Landmarks Commission, I'm Karen Boschkoff. And the library sent out the notices to everyone. And you may recall that at the last board meeting that you asked that the map be redrawn, removing that triangle portion and removing any commercial property. In the process of redrawing it, and I don't know where this happened, we worked with people from the Fig Garden District and also from Public Works. Somehow or another, we missed a little portion, and that's the portion that you're, that she's talking about. And so there's a fax that Bernice is passing out that we received at the library. It's also addressed to you, so I'm not quite sure why you didn't receive it. But so your group asked to have this part included. So that's what the background is.
Right, to stay in Fig Garden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And it was included in the first notice that they received, and your area was included. So it was a mistake in the mailing.
okay.
So is the information people are getting that is if we declare a historic district, that they're no longer going to be considered in Fig Garden?
No, they just want to be in the historic district.
In the historic district,
They consider themselves part of Fig Garden.
part of the historic district?
Right, right. And they were, in the first mailing that they got, they were included. In the second mailing, they weren't included. So
On the
it was
map.
really a staff error.
Okay.
So
And
they're going to be included, is that right, or not?
It's up to you.
Yeah.
And
Make that
what
decision.
makes where she lives historic? Just tell me that.
Well, it's part of the original historic
Old Fig.
Fig Garden District.
Okay, so we could, if it's approved today, we could add that corner back in.
Wonderful.
The hearing is really whether whether this is going to be named a historic district, so it's a pretty broad policy discussion, but certainly your points are appropriate to the inclusion of that opportunity, and I presume you're supportive of having it designated as a historic district. Is that a correct presumption?
Correct.
Okay.
It was the map as she explained, because we got two different maps sent to us.
Okay.
We were included in the county, which we've been forever, and then another one showed us in the city. So that was part of the problem right there.
Okay.
So
I
by doing this,
appreciate
they would remain a part of the county, is that
We
correct?
would like
Yeah,
to remain
there's-
part of
they're-
the county.
They are part of the county, unless they're
This is
annexed.
not going
Part
to
of the
change,
county.
this doesn't change county, city,
No.
anything.
We're part of the county.
And even
That's-
if you weren't included, you would still be part of the county. It
Oh,
doesn't
sure.
allow the city to annex you.
Sure, I agree.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you very much.
And maybe we could have Randy come up Randy McFarland, who's chairing the commission, and talk about the process that we've
Sure.
gone through on this. It's been a long process.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, members of the board, I'm Randy McFarland. I'm the chairman of the Fresno County Historic Landmarks and Records Advisory Commission. And this matter has been before our commission now for some time. As you know, the commissions was set up decades ago by this board and your predecessors in order to advise the board on historic landmarks within Fresno County. And we have expanded our role to a number of other things. We have, of course, our Centennial Businesses list, Centennial Farms, Centennial Communities, a number of things, all aimed at what the overall intent is to preserve and recognize the historic resources of Fresno County. In 1996, the board and the commission adopted a set of guidelines for the establishment of historic districts. And I think there's frequently a little bit of confusion over what that means. A historic district designation does not mean that every structure within an area is historic. But it does mean that there is something within that region, that area, that the nature of it, either the design, the landscaping, the just the way it feels, the neighborhood look, is so unique as to warrant a special consideration as a historic district. We don't have too many historic districts that we have done in Fresno County. Recently, the board adopted a designation for Sierra Sky Park as a historic district. And the commission felt with that application, as we do on this, that these are textbook examples of what a historic district should be. We don't expect everybody within the historic district will really care to be part of it, but by excluding individual properties, it really would make the whole purpose of the historic district for naught. Let me also say that this is more of an honorarium. As you will see in your staff report, and it's certainly the staff report on this is perhaps the most extensive that has ever been provided on a single item. We've spent a tremendous amount of time from our commission, which is all volunteer folks getting together and working on this with the Fig Garden Association. This does not imply that there are going to be new controls over design standards or zoning or this or that. It is an honorarium. It's something to take into consideration with future decisions to try to preserve a very unique area. It is possible, if the county were to adopt a historic preservation element in the future, that there might be some new type of regulatory process that might be, and I stress might be, considered at that time. That does not exist at this time. So we are not imposing a new layer of regulation on anyone. What we are trying to do is honor an extremely unique area in Fresno County and help it preserve itself. And at the same time, we are looking to preserve the history of Fresno County, and frankly, and especially in the metropolitan area of Fresno, we haven't done a very good job of preserving our history over time, and there's examples everywhere. This is an exception to that, and the commission feels and urges your favorable consideration of this application. We believe that we have met the board's previously stated concerns over it. We have many here who are willing and planning to talk about it, and we thank you for your consideration and urge your favorable consideration.
Before you leave, a question for you. You're very knowledgeable in this whole process with environmental impact studies and the various methods. Some of the concerns I've heard is that if somebody wants to change their property, they could potentially say a house just is irreplaceable or irreparable from a cost standpoint, and somebody ultimately throws their hands up and says, I can't fix all the problems that are here. I'd like to build a new house on my lot. I think the concern that comes back is that then will trigger an EIR because it's been a historical property precluding a property owner. What in the just kind of in the same vein, there's a couple of parcels within this designated area that actually designate, much to my surprise as I look real closely at this, as ag limited 20 acres.
Yeah, I saw
What
that,
about
too.
those folks?
I think those are open space areas.
But whoever owns that property
Well, that's-
someday may not want to be open space, and will we force them into being open space? And I'm not sure what's on those parcels.
Well, and that's a
This one is
policy call.
It's a pool?
School.
Oh, it's a school.
Yeah.
It's an elementary school.
Which one?
The top AL 20 is an elementary school.
By
I
Thorne
believe
and
both of them are.
Gettysburg? Why would we have a school in Ag
I don't know.
Limit?
And what's
I
the O?
know that Thorne and
Question for another
Gettysburg is
day.
a school.
What's the O below that? The O?
That's a ponding basin.
So it's never going to change
control.
really
No.
to anything else?
No, as far as, I'm not an attorney, and I am not a
But you've seen
land
these
use
things as
planner.
they start
Yeah,
kinda
I've seen them,
innocently and
and
develop.
of course, an environmental impact report for a single house would be a very unusual sort of thing, is my understanding of CEQA. That isn't to say that it couldn't occur, because it's, anybody can appeal it and attempt to get that requirement placed in. I don't think it's possible to stand here and look at an area as encompassing as Old Fig Garden and attempt to anticipate every situation that might occur in the future. Yeah, I suppose anything's possible. Frankly, I'm not sure that we have ever had an a full environmental impact review triggered by one of the actions of this board in honoring a historic property in Fresno County. We do not have, frankly, a very strong historic preservation ordinance. Ours is this is not like the city of Fresno's historic preservation ordinance, which is extremely strict and regulatory compared to the counties. And in fact, we think that there's some room to improve ours but the commission is of the point of view, and that's not the issue here today, that we don't want to get into a position of making people afraid of a historic preservation, of a historic preservation effort as this is. I'm afraid that if we were to let fears about well, maybe this will happen or maybe that'll happen, and get in the way of approval of of what is clearly an excellent application over a clearly unique area, then one would have to wonder, then what is a historic area? What is a historic site? So I don't see that as a problem, but as far as the specifics, I think that question needs to be asked of your county council and of the planning department.
Okay. I'll open it to public comment in just a moment.
I just have a comment that could help mitigate this whole issue. Examples
to come to the dais.
I have nothing further unless there's any
Okay.
other questions.
Let me open it up for public comment, and I will have you come to the dais and introduce yourself. Thank you for joining us.
My name is Robert Ware, and I live at 4430 North Palm in Fresno. And if you look on I don't see it on this map, but I see it on the map that shows the, what do you call it? It's the classifications of the different areas of property.
The map that's in our agenda packet.
It's the last map on the agenda packet. And on Palm Avenue, you see an R1C. Look on the last page of your packet
I see
there.
it.
You see that? Okay. I live immediately south of that. We have and for years, that was vacant property, 2-acre vacant property. And in the mid of the 1980s, Gary Vigan came and wanted to put in a planned unit development there and needed to get a reclassification of that space in order to do that. And we as neighbors offered concerns about that, and other neighbors around offered concerns. And in working with the proposer and with the county planning and so forth, we created a situation where that could happen, and yet it was made to happen in such a way that it respected the properties on all sides of it, so that it's become a wonderful addition to the area rather than any kind of blight. And I would just like to offer that as an example of ways in which the neighbors in Fig Garden and the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission were able to work out all these issues in such a fashion that nothing made a federal case out of it, and we have a wonderful addition to the old Fig Garden area, because it remains absolutely in compliance and in the same sense of beauty and quiet and character. So I really think that any objections that would be raised are simply being raised out of, let's say, ignorance of understanding of the congeniality of the people in Fig Garden by and large. I want to support the request to make this historic designation, because I have a historic property.
But let me ask you, across the street, what school is that across, you have a ponding basin across from you?
No. The map is deceptive. The map is deceptive because across the street from directly across the street from us is a vacant lot. And you have to go over to there's a ditch there. And the school property is on the west side of the ditch. On the east side of the ditch are properties facing Palm that are either residential properties or another planned unit development or a church.
That's a
Does
Fresno
anybody
Irrigation
have-
District canal there, right?
Could
That's
we
right.
put that map up on the overhead? If you need one, you can have mine out of the agenda, just so
Here-
people
here,
can
take
see
mine.
it. Because we have an overhead projector right there. We should be able to get it up for you.
No, I couldn't
We
even
got
have pointed
too
with my
much work.
finger then. Okay, I'm
well-
talking about, this is the planned unit development immediately north of our property, a 2-acre place that has condominiums on it. And to give you an example of the kind of negotiations that went on, which I think were extraordinarily neighborly, with the help of Sharon Levy, we were able to get Mr. Vigan to recognize that our property had been there for like 60 years, and so they were willing to put no windows on the second floor that would look onto our property, for example. And the windows are for bathrooms, and therefore they're not see-through glass, but they get light in. And it preserved our privacy, and it preserved theirs, and we got a variance to get a fence that was high enough so no one could look across into our bedroom windows. And that kind of thing, it may sound onerous, but it seemed to me that it was a wonderful process of negotiation, and we've lived together wonderfully ever since. And so I really think that as we proceed forward with this, we're honoring a very special area with a very special character. And by and large, my neighbors and friends want and work to maintain that. And all we're suggesting is that by the formal designation of its being a historic area where people do care about preserving that specialness, we in effect have the consent of the county that our efforts are valuable to the county. And for that matter, to the state, because there are not a lot of areas in the country that you can point to that are as special as Old Fig Garden is, I think, to the city of Fresno.
Thank you for your comments. I'm going to ask if there's any board questions of staff, and then I'll reopen it to the public.
I do have, is staff here to address, anybody here from Public Works, I guess?
Bernard is here.
As we look at this map, I'm looking now west of Palm. The red portion that says O, you're saying is a ponding basin, correct? Is that?
Yes, that's Ponding Basin.
And north of that is a school. What school is that? Does anybody know? What is it?
Wawona.
Okay, Wawona is there.
Elementary school.
And then the AL-20 down at Ashland, just west of Palm.
That's a school also, isn't it?
It's a school.
Just below the Ponding Basin. That's Powers Ginsburg.
Okay.
It's hard to tell when you
So
look at
those
the
are not
map.
open spaces that someone's going to come to us and ask to do anything else with, first of all. What I'd like to know, the agenda item has changed since last time, because last time we were saying that it is we're declaring the entire area a historic district. I do believe where you live, I think he called us ignorant for asking the questions, but I do believe where you live is more historic than closer to fruit because I've lived close to Fruit, and I didn't think I lived in Old Fig, but that's besides the point, I guess. So my question to you is, we got the board brief, we got the little briefing about CEQA and those requirements. That's not a huge concern of mine. My concern is, if we declare this, now if you're asking me to declare this entire area historic Old Fig Garden, I have a problem with that. I do not believe this entire area is historic Old Fig Garden. Now, if you're asking us to declare this Old Fig Garden, okay, maybe. I ask you, if we do this, everybody keeps saying there's no teeth in this, it's just a gratuitous thing, we're going to declare it a historic district. I want to know from you, Bernard, when someone, anyone in this Old Fig district comes to you, if we declare it a historic district, or declare it whatever we do today, when they come to you, is there at any time you would tell them, sorry, you can't do that, you're in a historic district, or sorry, you aren't able to do that because you are in a historic district? Is there anything, if we decide to do this today, I would like to see us, if we're calling it a historic Old Fig Garden, I'd like to see the map be brought in a bit. If we're just saying, hey, this is Old Fig Garden, okay, maybe, but what does this really do for someone that comes in and wants to do something, and I don't know what that something is, you be creative.
Thank you, Supervisor. Bernard Jimenez, Department of Public Works and Planning. The designation does not prohibit individuals from requesting changes to their property. And I guess the best example is when your board designated the Sierra Sky Park as a historic district, there really wasn't anything unique individually about the properties. I mean, they weren't built 50 years ago. Most of those were built in the 70s and 80s. But it was the combination of that being the first park and live airport. The airstrip was right next to it. The road widths were wider beyond the typical residential. So in total, it was unique and it had historic merits to it. Now we bring this application forward. I don't believe anybody's gone out and done individual inventories of properties to identify whether or not they meet any of the state or local criteria for being listed on a historic local register. However, in total, I believe this is a ceremonial designation. So what we deal with are things like issuance of building permits. We process applications for changes on uses of properties. And we break those two types of activities down into ministerial processes and as well as discretionary processes. And so the ministerials are things that what we commonly refer to as by right uses. Being able to construct a residence in a residential district is a by right use. It's a ministerial process. Provided you meet the county's development standards, the county is obligated to issue that permit. Remodels, things of demolitions, those are ministerial processes that do not require either a discretionary approval by the Planning Commission or your board. If somebody wanted to rezone their property and redesignate it from residential to commercial, that is a discretionary process that triggers compliance with the California Environmental Quality Act, which if this designation was in place, we would have to consider the impacts of redesignating lands from residential to commercial and what impact they may have.
Well, that's a laborious process, so CEQA would really drag out the time they could do anything in, too. Right?
It could, but you know, the issue of impacts to historic resources is present no matter what, no matter whether this district is present or not. Somebody could make that claim that somebody developing their property, going through a discretionary process, may have impacts on an adjacent historic building or a building that may be on the property. That potential exists today, whether or not this district is present or not.
But you said, you know, anybody can come in and request changes.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a problem. But when they come through your door and request a change for a building permit, is there anything with this where you would say, you're requesting a building permit, sorry, you can't do that because that's a historic district?
No.
Is there anything for change of uses? If someone comes to you for a change of use, sorry, you can't do that, that's a historic district?
for a change of use that is discretionary, again, I go back to things that are permitted by right versus things that require approval by planning commission and your board. That's a discretionary use. And we would never tell anybody, no, you can't do it because it's discretionary. What we tell folks is that it is discretionary, and there are certain things we consider, and we can't dictate what the board or predict what the board or commission may decide in a public forum.
So what happens, though, is someone comes in to change their use, and they go through the process, they pay the fee, they do all of that. It comes to the planning commission, and then, at the planning commission level, a lot of residents are here saying, this is a historic district, you can't do that in the historic district. But you're saying there's nothing specific that comes to mind where that would be the case?
Well, what comes to mind specifically for a discretionary process is as we go through the CEQA process, there are a number of categories we look at, and impacts to historic resources is one of the categories we consider. Again, we consider that whether or not this district is present or not. If we're aware of information or we receive comments that you folks are proposing to tear down a building that has some historic significance, we're obligated to consider that information.
I know you consider it. Do you consider it as much or more when it's a historic district? I guess that's the question. You consider it?
We consider it equally, because the CEQA guidelines that require us to evaluate these resources, it really requires it whether or not a district is there or not.
So we won't see in our agenda packet when you're evaluating this, this is a historic district and we cannot allow this to happen.
Well, I mean, I'm speculating here, but theoretically, you could see a recommendation from staff that identifies impacts to a historic resource. Now, normally, we would identify mitigation to address those impacts, or we would indicate that there are no mitigations and you're into having to prepare an environmental impact report. But ultimately, that decision lies with your board and your planning commission. There isn't anything that prohibits the county from exercising its land use authority in approving a project that may have impacts to historic resources. It may be done as a result of incorporating mitigation, or your board adopting a statement of overriding considerations. But your board still retains that authority, and the county still retains that authority.
So do the residents of this district, what do they think, what is their motivation that this is so important that this be a historic district? Do they think, the lady that came forward, it sounds like she thinks she's going to be out of the county if this happens, but what's the importance of doing this from their perspective? Do they think they're saving their neighborhood? Do they think they're keeping people out? Do they think, they're going to have the opportunity to have more discretion or more input when changes of use come forward?
I think what they think is that it's a way of the county recognizing their neighborhood, and it's about, they want the recognition from the county. This is a historic area, whether we recognize it or not. They feel it's in a historic area, and I know that you're more concerned about expanding, but I can tell you that, I disagree with that, and I think more importantly, the people who live there disagree with it. They consider themselves part of Fig Garden, even if they live on the edges of the island. They want to be creating, they have a neighborhood, and they want the county to recognize that. So they feel it is a historic area, whether we approve this or not. It's a historic neighborhood, and we have seen, I think, that wording even in agenda items that come forward. They say they recognize it as a historic neighborhood. And I know the woman who's standing up, I have not met her, but at the last meeting, there were board members who expressed concern about the triangle that's down in the bottom left-hand corner. And so really, to try to get support of the majority of the board, we took that triangle out. I don't feel that the triangle should be out and I don't think the neighborhood feels it should be out either. They feel it's part of the Fig Garden area, and now there are people here who are questioning, why is that neighborhood out? We're trying to be more inclusive. We don't want to create an exclusive area. We want to be more inclusive of the whole neighborhood, and when you drive through the neighborhood, you kind of see where it starts and stops, and really, it's actually a little bit bigger than this map. But we had board members who were concerned about the commercial property, so we took the commercial property out, and then we had a board member who was concerned about the triangle in the bottom left, so we took that out, although we don't really feel it should come out. But we want the recognition of this neighborhood, which is a historic neighborhood, whether you recognize it or not. I mean, you may not recognize it, but let me tell you, the people who live there recognize it.
Additional comments, Supervisor Pacheco? I'm going to open it to the public because we might learn a lot from what. Let me open it up for public comment, if you would, please, as you come forward, introduce yourselves, and every speaker is limited to 5 minutes, if you would, please, so everybody has an opportunity.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Supervisor Pacheco, my name's Nick Hustetti. I've been a resident of Fig Garden for just 6 years, which is not a long time considering most of the neighbors. I live at 4946 North Wishon Court, which is right on the edge, just south of Shaw. And I came forward because I've got to get back to work, but in answering Supervisor Pacheco's question, the reason we want this to happen is because Fig Garden's a great neighborhood, and when you go up and down the state, if you go to San Francisco, you go to San Diego, you go to Los Angeles, you go to spectacular neighborhoods in those communities, they're great. Fig Garden's a great neighborhood, and so I would encourage you not to be afraid of greatness. Fresno County needs more places like Fig Garden. All this is going to do is make an official designation that, yeah, Fig Garden's a great place. We probably have other areas in Fresno County that qualify under this guideline. And you know, personally, as someone who's lived in Fresno for most of his life, I think we need more bragging points. So I would just urge you to consider that. I live right next to 2 commercial properties. They're great neighbors. They do a nice job. As in the 6 years that I've lived in that neighborhood, I've seen some buildings knocked down, and what's really neat is they build better ones. And I've never seen a neighborhood where people continuously improve their properties like they do in Fig Garden. And so I think for us, this is more of just an official designation that this is one more great place in Fresno County. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Hello. This is my first time here, so please.
Welcome.
Thank you. What I wanted to say is that I
I'm
live.
just if you would introduce yourself.
Oh,
yes.
okay. My name's Anna Rodriguez, and I live in that triangle. And I want to ask you not to leave us out of there, out of the historic. Our homes are very old, and there's a lot of original owners that own the houses, and they don't have a lot of money to fix it up. But eventually, you know, we'll have new people that will come in someday and hopefully fix them up again. And the original, you know, I moved in 2003, and I'm working with the house that I moved in, fixing it up. Most of the houses there have wood floors. They have all kinds of stuff that you guys have in your homes. You know, they're just not 3-story houses and big backyards. They're small, but they have everything. They have a lot of original stuff, and we do take care of them. It might not seem like it when you pass by, but you know what? There's a few of us that do take care of it, and we help our neighbors, and that's what you need to do, is focus on helping those people.
If you would
Because they're
just direct
older
your
people.
comments to the board, there's a map right there next to you. Can you just point on the map there in the drawer?
Right here.
That's where you live. Okay.
And we are also unique. We're beautiful. We have beautiful homes. And I want to please for you to include us. Do not leave us out. We are unique. And thank you, you know.
But you were concerned about being included in a historic district.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Yes,
wants
we
to-
are.
she wants to
And
be-
there's a lot of us in our neighborhood, and I'm sorry, a lot of us cannot make it. They work. Some of them are the only income that they have to be there. If there's something that I can do to help, you know, to get everyone petition or whatever, I'll be glad to help out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your comments.
My name is Ray Morris. Just a couple of questions for clarification. If you vote to approve this as it is on the agenda, is it true that you have excluded the commercial? It was in the first agenda item back 2 or 3 months ago, but is the commercial deleted from this?
Maybe Bernard can
It is.
answer that.
It's deleted.
Are the businesses on Shaw Avenue also deleted then?
I believe we
Maybe
deleted.
Bernard, if you could just stay at the front table, I think
Sure.
we're going to have questions for you.
Thank you. And actually, my understanding was that even the original request never included the commercial properties. I think that was a misclarification. However, the map that has been presented to your board for today's action does not include the commercial properties along Shaw Avenue.
The original map did have them on there, though, right?
It may have, but
It did.
I don't believe that was the intent originally. so.
Right. Okay, so I have more senior moments now, so sometimes I have to ask more than once for clarification. So the commercial property is excluded from this proposal, is that correct?
Yes.
Just a couple of more quick comments. If, as I understand it, from listening to the discussions this morning, really this has no teeth, that it really is kind of a feel-good kind of a resolution. And my question is, why are you doing it if it doesn't really do anything? Terms like might and maybe, or it's not our intent, are kind of scary to property owners and small business in particular, because there's a trend towards incremental encroachment and requirements on an endangered species of small business now. So that kind of thing always makes me nervous, because I've seen it go from might to will or shall or is a requirement. Having been in real estate construction for 50-some years now, it would appear to me that it is more of a marketing challenge for the Fig Garden neighborhood than it should be a regulation or an approved resolution. I'm not an attorney, but I do know some real estate law, and it's my understanding that every property owner in there that wants to have restrictions from a historical standpoint, design criteria, whatever, can voluntarily record a covenant. The county recorder's office restricting their property. They could form a architectural review committee and put that as a deed requirement that runs with the land. And by doing that, it would make the ones that want to do it step up and say, yes, I want to do that. But the ones that don't want to do it wouldn't be restricted by it. So, anyway.
I think you're misunderstanding what the people who live there are not looking for restrictions. They're looking for a designation, and the reason we're doing this is that the neighborhood has requested it.
Well, like I say,
come
it
from the
would appear
neighborhood.
to me that it's more of a marketing challenge. If the Fig Garden Neighborhood Association, whatever the vehicle is, wants to really call attention to the neighborhood, they could certainly do that and have a marketing program and flyers and newsletters and all the rest of it, and they could certainly promote their community and promote it so that the rest of the Fresno County community would know it. It's just that I personally am opposed to more and more restrictions on individual property rights.
Where is your property, sir?
I represent